Hello, Top Fan Rivalry followers and supporters, and welcome to Saturday. You know what this means. This means that it is time to go and do a weekly review. Jackson's here. I'm here. Let's get it on. Jackson, how the heck are you this morning?
I'm doing all right, doing all right.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna have to have more energy than that, Jackson. I'm
Uh,
3 hours behind you,
it's hard.
and
It's
it is
hard
getting
to
early.
watch the Braves offense play, and then tell me if you have any energy. That's
Okay,
all.
well, I get it. I hear you, Jackson. I got you. I'm feeling what you're putting down. I'm picking up what you're putting down. So, Jackson, where are we going to start? Numero uno. Let's do it.
What? I'll get my obligatory homer pick out of the way. Congratulations to Chris Sale for getting 2,500 strikeouts, the 40th pitcher of Major League Baseball history. He looks like he's like two good seasons away from 3,000. Honestly, two, three good seasons, and I think that would just cement his Hall of Fame candidacy. Uh, it's just crazy that he's come back from injury and been this good. He won the Cy Young last year. He still looks really good this year, even though you can tell he's not at his best. And I just think that's what Hall of Fame pitchers do. They bounce back and they look good even when they're not at their best.
Look good even when they're not at their best. Yes, I agree with you. I love a good bounce back story. I love a good bounce back story, and in this case, Chris Sale is that, right? I mean, it effectively it looked like his career was over. Let's be honest,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the Red Sox are paying Chris Sale's salary through this season. That's how much the Red Sox thought Chris Sale's career was basically over. They were just dumping a player. It to me, it's astonishing. I'm not saying he's going to turn into Randy Johnson, but it kind of feels Randy Johnson-esque, where it's like the guy gets older and it's like, huh, you should have been done like 3 or 4 years ago, based off what we were seeing. But
Well, yeah, yeah, it's a good call on that one. I actually I liked Chris Sale. Um, they until he kind of I kind of felt like he lost it, right? And the whole rant in the clubhouse when he was in AAA with uh with Boston, that was not awesome. So, anyways, all right, my friend, I got a number one for you. I'm going to
all
talk
right,
about a team real quick. I'm going to get some individuals today, but talk about a team real quick. This team has won three in a row. They're 27 and 30. They have no chance of making the playoffs this season, but they are doing a lot of what you and I thought that they would do. They have a pitcher who is leading the MLB in strikeouts, and they've got a lot of young kids on their team. Jackson, who am I talking about?
it's the Washington Nationals.
That's right, the Washington Nationals. Keep your eyes out on these guys. James Wood is the real deal. Dylan Cruz is the real deal. Mackenzie Gore is the real deal. A lot of young kids over there, and as the Mets have not gotten younger, but have effectively are getting older, as are the Phillies. Keep your eyes out on the Nationals. Jackson, tell me I'm wrong.
I've said it once, I'll say it again. They won the Juan Soto trade. I don't care how good Soto was in San Diego. I don't care if the Padres are pushing for the World Series. I think the Nationals showed you the master class of how to rebuild as a. I'll put this in quotation marks because it's DC small market. It's a small baseball market, um, but really kind of they got four. They got their core from one trade with the Padres for Juan Soto, which is incredible. James Wood and Dylan Cruz are going to be really good in a couple of years in the middle of that lineup. CJ Abrams is a nice guy to have in your lineup. Good speed. His defense has been improving, and then you got Ace and Mackenzie Gore, all for two, 3 seasons of Juan Soto, which you would have been bad anyways.
Preach.
So the Nationals made out like bandits in that trade, and I think they're going to start reaping the benefits real soon.
I preach. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, Jackson, what you got for number two?
My number two, let's talk about the differences in records at this point this year compared to last year. And the team that really has kind of surprised me at this point has been, the St. Louis Cardinals is one of the teams that jumps out. They have three more wins Last year at this point they were 500. This year they're 30-24 or 32-25. Excuse me, misspoke. 32-25, but they're sitting just 3 games out behind the Chicago Cubs. I think everybody when we did our prediction podcast wrote off the Cardinals as probably a fourth or fifth place team. Uh, they found it again, and honestly, they've looked like a really solid ball club. They have a really solid pitching staff. The offense is in the middle of the pack, which you know we were expecting that to be flipped. But I think the Cardinals have a legit shot to make a playoff berth this year. Especially, the Cubs aren't as dominant as we thought they would be, despite getting some really big production from some guys. The St. Louis Cardinals are back, and as a fan of a team in the National League, why couldn't they stay down for longer? Honestly,
This guy, beep,
honestly,
that's the bus.
I know. Honestly, they're like, "Oh, we were so bad 2 seasons, and then they're good again." It's like, "Oh, boo-hoo!
Oh, boo.
We're the Cardinals. We win the Central every year.
Uh,
Boo-hoo!"
my goodness, stay bad. That's awesome, Jackson. I was not expecting that from you. Thank you very much. That was
Well,
awesome.
I'm sure you as the Dodgers fan feel the same way. If you run into the Cardinals in the playoffs, it triggers something where you're like, "These guys again? Like, come on!"
So the Cardinals historically, until gosh, 17, I think it was. No, I'm sorry, until 21, when we had to play still the one game playoff in the wild card. That I mean, and the Cardinals had won 84 games and we had won 107. Um, yeah, I was pretty, yeah, not happy, or as they would say in Louisiana, not happy, happy, happy about that, right?
But yeah, no, but yeah, I just thought I'd highlight the Cardinals. They're probably my most surprising team in the MLB this year.
No, they're
There's
not. The A's, who you picked to win the West,
hey,
are in
look,
last place.
hey, 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 hey. They're only 8.5 out. It's the American League West. Anything can happen.
True that, true that. Okay, my number two might surprise you a little bit, Jackson, because we never talk about this team, but I feel like I'm watching the movie Major League when at the beginning of it, I'm going to clean it up. The uh, blue collar guys are like reading through the papers and like, who the are these guys, right? I feel that way about the Tampa Bay Rays, who have won 8 out of 10, are one game under 500, and obviously, I mean, they're back significantly in the division, but because the Yankees are playing so well, but they have leapfrogged Boston, they have leapfrogged Baltimore, who's having an abysmal season, right? Um, they all of a sudden, and I'm looking at their lineup, going, who are these guys? I don't know any of these guys, but they're playing so well right now.
Yeah, you want to talk about, I talked about the Cardinals being inevitable in the National League. Here's the American League equivalent. It's Tampa Bay. We're going to trade everybody who you know. We're going to get back a bunch of guys, and we're gonna play baseball. They have a really solid young core. And honestly, I think last year they were set back by, the whole Wander Franco thing. You know, they put all their
Yes,
eggs in that basket and it backfired horribly,
yes,
which isn't a knock on the Tampa Bay Rays, but I think they've recovered wonderfully. Their shortstop Taylor Walls, who many people were probably like, "Who's that guy?" He's the best defensive shortstop in the MLB, apparently. Uh, he's the most valuable defender in the MLB. They got guys like Junior Caminero, who's a really good. He was a really high prospect. He's showing off that elite power that he had as a prospect now. I think Tampa Bay is really good at finding guys who fit roles, and they play probably what I like to call platoon baseball, where every man on their roster is valuable. There's no such thing as like a strict bench piece. Everybody's valuable, and everyone gets to play, and everyone plays their part, and it's really fun baseball to watch. Honestly,
I agree. 100%. 100,000%. I agree with that.
when they made the World Series in 2020, it was a collection of guys where you're like, this is the guy in their lineup. Brett Phillips was a hero in that playoff run. It's like, and he goes somewhere else and he's not quite as good. It's because Tampa Bay is good at making their platoon pieces, better than what they actually are because they know how to mix and match really well. That front office and that management. But
Yep,
yeah, I really like what Tampa Bay is doing. They're making some noise in the American League.
they are. They are. They are. So they bumped up against Houston this weekend, lost the first game, but we'll see where it goes from there. So, Okay, Jackson, numero tres.
Let's talk about the American League Central. Um,
Ah,
the Twins have salvaged their horrible start. They were like 6-13. They're now 31-25. They have jumped into second place. But you still got Cleveland. You got Kansas City a game behind them each. A game or two behind them each. And Detroit's got the best record in the American League. I don't think we expected this out of the AL Central. I think we expected two, maybe three good teams. The Twins are playing some really, really good baseball. The pitching's clicking. I think they have one of the best pitching staffs in the American League, if not the best. They've allowed the fewest runs in the American League, and they're doing it with their guys, on and off the injured list. And we talked about, the key for them is keeping guys like Royce Lewis and Carlos Correa healthy. Even though the Byron Buxton, even though all three of those guys have missed some time, the Twins are clicking. I know they're 6 games back in the division, but they're up in the wild card, which I think for Minnesota is right where you want to be in the playoff mix in the American League where anything can happen. Um, but yeah, I just want to credit the AL Central. They're playing some good baseball right now.
so I'm gonna course correct you here a bit. The Tigers have the best record in baseball
Do they have the best record
in
in
the American
baseball?
League. Yes,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, they do.
the best record in baseball.
They've won
And
five in a row. I just noticed.
yeah, they won five in a row. They got the best record in baseball. I think you're right about the Twins. The Twins had that 12 game or 13 game winning streak, which helped them. Um, for all teams, and we've talked about this a bazillion times, right? All teams are needing to win series, right? And so the Twins, they had fallen behind a little bit. Maybe thought you were going to see the same season that we've seen from them before. They put together that nice 12, 13 game winning streak. Now just go out and win series, right? Take two out of three, win four out of six every week. Um, a lot of what these guys are doing too, and a lot of teams, Padres are one of them, are going to play 26 games in 27 days because we're leading up to the All-Star break. And so a lot of the teams are going to get bumped around in June where they don't have a lot of time off. So good call.
Yeah.
Good call, Jackson. Now, Jackson, can I take on the number three? Can I just take it to the elephant in the room, please?
All right.
The New York Yankees, the Bronx Bombers, come to the Ravine to play America's team this weekend, right? The Dodgers. And that game did not disappoint. Aaron Judge in the first inning says, boom, I'm going to do what I do. Shohei says, homemade Gatorade, you're in my house. And Shohei did the same thing back. I'm getting a text message from a Yankee fan, and they're like, all rise. And then the game was on Apple TV, so I couldn't see it. We don't have Apple TV. So the game's on Apple TV, and I look at my text message, and then I get another one that it says, gee, dang it. And I'm looking on the screen, and I realize that Shohei just went yard. All right. Is this potentially a World Series preview?
It could be. It couldn't be. I think both teams, obviously are the favorites in their respective leagues. But I
Hmm.
think with how the National League is, you could put the Dodgers as the favorite. I don't think you can just place them in the World Series. I think they're good.
Mm, yeah.
But I do think there are injury concerns, especially with the rotation in the bullpen. In the regular season, depth overcomes that. In the playoffs, it gets a little bit more noticeable when every at bat counts. Um, but certainly it could be one of the previews. I'm sure the MLB is hoping it's a rematch because they would love the TV ratings on that.
100%.
A
100%.
100%. But I think it's nice that we get to play these series with the balanced schedule. But just a side rant on the balanced schedule, it's dumb. It's not balanced.
Mhm.
The Braves don't play the Mets till mid June, and I'll
Yeah.
just say that.
Well, either the Dodgers don't play the Giants or the Padres until
It,
then. And
ridiculous.
and so here's what I think is interesting too, sir. Here's what I think is very interesting about this is um, the Dodgers. So the Dodgers' schedule is kind of unique. They played the Mets, right? They lost two out of three there in Queens. They took two out of three um, from Cleveland, right? And then they come home. Now they play the Yankees for three, And then on Monday, they start a 4-game series against the Mets. So you get all your New York out of the way in 1 week.
Yeah.
Then, um, then, then the following week, the following 10 days, you play out of the 10 days, you play the Padres 3 times. I mean, 7 times. Crazy.
I don't like it. Uh, I think the Braves have gone. Their last four series was away, home, away, home. Why? For 3 game sets. Why? MLB, please bring back the nice old couple who knew how to schedule the MLB. This AI isn't doing it for me, man. Like honestly, it's so confusing. Teams got to take 5 trips to the opposite coast. It used to just be like one or two.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
knock out a 10 game road trip, and then it's like, we're done with that until August, and then after August, you're like, we're done with that for the year. But now it's just, yeah, that's just a side tangent rant about the schedule. It's ridiculous. I think we're seeing it wear on a lot of these teams who've had these weird schedules. You can't blame all bad play on weird scheduling, but it's certainly a factor because they are human beings.
Mhm.
And how weird is it? You're on the road and then you're at home and then you're on the road.
Yeah. The Dodgers have a stretch, and I can't remember when it is, but it's coming up here pretty quick. I think they have a stretch of like 15 days where they don't even leave California, but they or maybe 20 days where they get the Angels, the Giants, the Padres, and I think the Padres again or something like that. It's silly. They don't even leave California, but whatever. I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
I
whatever.
agree with you. Bring back the nice old couple.
Yeah, they knew how to do it. They did it by hand with math. I think that the AI needs to check its math. That's all I'm saying.
All right, Jackson, we're on number 4. We're rolling through the show today. Let's go. What you got for number 4?
Number 4, it's the weekly mention. How low can they go? The Colorado Rockies are still on pace for the worst record in the modern era, and it's not close, Bill. Um, they're on pace for 38.2 wins in a 162 game season. Uh, oh, hold on. No, I read that backwards. The Philadelphia Athletics were. The Rockies are on pace for 26 wins, um, which is bad. It
You
would be the
think?
worst. It'd be the worst winning percentage since the 1899 Cleveland Spiders, the infamous Cleveland Spiders. They will never be forgotten. But the Rockies still aren't at 10 wins. Uh, we're almost to June, and I've never seen anything like this.
June's
Everybody,
tomorrow,
yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean, you don't get 10 wins in March, April, and May.
10 wins is a bad month for most teams. That's the crazy part. Like you only win 10 games in a month. You're like, ooh, we had a bad month. They haven't won 10 games all season. They're 9 and
Yeah,
48. They're already 26 games out of first place. You know, by the All-Star break, they might have like 70, 80 losses.
possibility. It's a possibility because
It's
they
on the
still got
table.
another 30 or so games till the All-Star break. I mean, at this point they could have 80 losses by the All-Star break.
Yeah, it's feasible, and I just again, I'll simplify for everyone. MLB needs to intervene for the sake of the competitive integrity of the game, and owners who don't, you know, they haven't changed anything. They fire their manager. What's that going to do? But
Well, obviously didn't do anything because these guys are still playing terrible.
yeah, they're still playing terrible. The manager wasn't the root of the cause. It's ownership, pinching pennies on a team that honestly in Colorado should be profitable and should be a good baseball team.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Look, they get 30,000 people, 25 to 30,000 people a game, and they're bad. Can you imagine that stadium if they were good?
Yeah,
It,
they get more than the A's do. Um, the A's are, I mean, back when the A's were playing in, yeah. Anyways, let me get number 4. We got to get to number 5. I know you got a bunch of stuff to do this morning, so We'll get it through. I have to mention the obligatory weekly mention of Aaron Arson Judge, who
all
has
right.
eight. Yeah, all rise. Who has 83 hits? Who's batting 392. You got to mention him in a sentence because 392 at this point in the season, and I know it's still technically there's still well over 100 games to play. but to be almost at 400 this late in the season is pretty amazing. Freddie Freeman is not too far behind him at 368, right? And Freddie might be on his tail if he hadn't missed a little bit of time at the beginning of the season. But Aaron has got what? I mean, Aaron's got 19 home runs. He's got 48 RBIs. He's got 83 hits. I mean, he's doing it at the plate. This guy has a chance to have 250 hits this season. Just saying. That's a pretty big season.
Yeah. It's a monster season. I think, he's like I say every week, he surprises us one way or another. And just how good he's gotten. He's been getting
Oh,
better every year.
yeah,
And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he hit 60 homers. It's like a given at this point.
I wouldn't either. Okay,
Yeah.
Jackson takes away to number five.
All right. I want to talk about a guy who, because Aaron Judge exists, isn't getting as much chatter as he probably should as an MVP candidate. Let's talk about Cal Raleigh in Seattle.
That
Uh,
was my number five. All right,
yes,
awesome. Let's talk
yes.
about Cal Riley. This doesn't happen that often on the show, but it does happen on occasion.
It feels good when we're
Yes.
on the same wavelength like that. But
I'm sitting here writing down all the stats to like blow you away as the top fan rivalry stats guy, and you done gone and took my number five. That's it, everybody. Hey, it's been a great show. Hope you enjoy. No, go ahead,
yeah,
Jackson.
but he's got 21 home runs as a catcher, 381 on base, 623 slugging. It's crazy, and
Mhm.
it got me thinking like, what are the best, the most home runs by a catcher in a season? It's only 48 by Salvador Perez. Uh, Cal Raleigh's definitely having a season where he could definitely surpass that if he goes on a hot enough tear here. Uh, but it'll be interesting to see how he plays post All Star break because the wear and tear on catcher's legs. Catcher is the most demanding pitcher position in the MLB. But I think with the DH, he might be able to do it. He's already have set the record for most home runs by a catcher before the end of May,
Mhm.
which is really impressive with some of the power hitting catchers we've seen over the years. Yeah, most notably Mike Piazza. Surprised me that Mike Piazza hasn't done this before. Uh, but yeah, I think he's cementing himself as MVP two in the American League. Unfortunately, because Aaron Judge exists.
Yeah, he. I mean, You're absolutely right. He's not going to get MVP because Aaron Judge. Let's be honest. He's putting up video game numbers,
Yeah,
right? I mean, when you're talking 83 hits already and 19 home runs, I mean, yeah, Shohei's putting up video game numbers too, but Aaron Judge is putting up video game numbers. And so the question, the only thing about Cal Riley that becomes the question is the team that he plays for. I mean, these guys were leading their division for a couple of weeks and now have hit a slide where they've lost three in a row. They've lost, or they've won three out of 10 out of their last 10. That's not awesome. So,
it'll be interesting to see how Seattle responds. It looks like they're getting the hitting they need this year. The pitching has been the rough spot for them. I know they've had a couple of injuries.
a couple big injuries.
There's some big injuries. George Kirby, at the beginning of the season was like the biggest one.
Mhm.
Um, but I think Seattle definitely, as long as Cal Raleigh is playing at an MVP level, is a playoff team. Honestly, it's the big bat they need next to Julio Rodriguez.
Mhm. Yeah, no, agreed, agreed,
That,
agreed.
that I've been saying since 2 years ago that they needed a guy to protect Julio Rodriguez in the lineup, and they finally do. And look, it's all clicking.
Um, that's, I mean, I Seattle needs a little bit of playoff love. They need to go deep in the playoffs at some point, just for the city, right? But
Yeah,
we haven't seen that in a while.
yeah, they got an interesting month of June. They have Baltimore, then they head down to Anaheim to play Angels, then they play the Diamondbacks, and then they got some, the Guardians, the Red Sox, the Cubs, the Twins, and then the Rangers is a big series at the end of June. So it'll be really interesting to see how you know they play in June. I feel like they have a favorable enough schedule, but the Red Sox aren't as good as we thought they were. The Rangers are a little down this year. They got the Angels and the Orioles. They really need to set the tone at the beginning of the month if they want to really kind of catapult themselves firmly into that spot before the All-Star break. They need to
Yes.
beat up on the Orioles. They need to beat up on the Angels. They need to beat up on the Diamondbacks, who aren't playing that well, honestly.
Yeah. No, agreed. Agreed. All right, Jackson, since you stole mine, I'm going to go back to, I'm going to see how well you know stats
Oh boy.
for this season. Okay. This individual I'm going to talk about, we've mentioned before actually on this episode, mentioned before. He's hitting 287, 16 home runs, 43 RBIs, nine stolen bases, 62 hits. And he's barely old enough to drink. Who am I talking about?
Hmm. Is it Bobby Witt Jr.?
Nah, it's
No,
James
no.
Wood.
James Wood. You know what? Bobby Witt has way more stolen bases than that. What am I thinking?
Yeah, but James Wood is fast. I mean, but here's the thing that is interesting about James Wood and what he's putting together, right? The guy's 22 years old. He could end up this season with 35, maybe even 40 home runs. He could be a 30-30 guy or a 40-40 guy. He's got the potential for that, but he's got 62 hits already. He could potentially go 30-30 or 40-40 and have 190 hits this season, and ain't nobody talking about him because there's this guy in LA that is doing monstrous things, right?
I think you're right. And I think the most impressive part about James Wood is, as a 22-year-old, his ability to draw walks.
Yes.
He's already drawn 34. He's got a 385 on base percentage. And honestly, he looks like a better version of Juan Soto. I know it's too early to say that, but he looks like what young Juan Soto was, but with more power. Where if he can keep up this plate discipline with the kind of pop he has, this guy's going to be a terrifying hitter for the next decade or decade and a half.
Mhm.
You know, he plays anywhere near this level for the rest of his career. Save him a seat in Cooperstown because he's got all the talent. He's got the physical skill set. Like you said, he's got some speed. He's a solid defender. He's got a good arm. James Wood, really good baseball player.
So Jackson started the show off with Chris Sale getting 2,500. Then he talked about the Cardinals, the American League Central, Cal, Colorado Rockies, and Cal Riley. I talked about the Nationals, the Tampa Bay Rays, Soto and Judge. I'm sorry, not Soto and Judge, Shohei and Judge. And then I talked about Judge specifically and was going to talk about Cal Riley, but we talked about James Wood. Do you have any, as we wrap this thing up, Jackson, do you have any honorable mentions today
Uh,
to mention?
Honorable mention to J.P. Crawford for his vintage old school meltdown, arguing balls and strikes the other night, I believe it was. He got his money's worth, and it's if you're gonna get thrown out, make it a spectacle, and I give it a 10 out of 10. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if you saw. It started with the look back at the umpire, and then the jawing, and then he got ejected, and he got in the umpire's face, and he kept taking a step forward, not touching the umpire, but to move the umpire back a few steps every couple of words. It was a vintage meltdown that I haven't seen in a long time. So that is my honorable mention this week. J.P. Crawford, that was amazing.
Yeah. I don't really have any honorable mentions this week. I mean, there's been a lot of good baseball, but I think we've nailed it down pretty good. So, Jackson, everybody that goes to the team store, they want to get merch, they want to get hats, they want to get shirts, they want to get into a box break, anything like that. They use which code? Save themselves a little bit of money.
Code Jackson, 10% off. Get yourself a hoodie because if you're like me and live in Pennsylvania, it's randomly 55 degrees in the middle of spring and you need your hoodie.
Yeah.
So get your discount for your hoodie for those cold nights. It's supposed to be 90 next week. I'll believe it when I see it. But yeah, use code Jackson, get 10% off. Also get a hat. Hats are fun. I have so many hats.
I
My wife
love
hates
hats. We
my
got
wife
plenty of hats.
my wife hates how many hats I have. I still buy hats. I have a top fan hat. I'm probably gonna get another one. Go in.
Well,
Don't pay
you might
don't
have to
pay full
just
price.
don't pay full price. So
Get 10% off. Come on.
there you go. All right, Jackson, and everybody, we appreciate you. We got you 30 minutes of the weekly review today. We didn't want to take you too far into it because heck, we know you got stuff to do. So we appreciate you being on, and we will see you guys next week. Have a great week.